Hey there, Squirrel Army. How's it going? For today, I want to do a deck tech on Yenna Red Tooth Regent.
You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing.
Alrighty, so Renna. This commander, I feel like this commander's underrated. If we look at the top commanders coming out of the set, we've got Early, who we did a deck tech on, which is over 2,000 decks. And then down here, we've got Yenna. Only 311 decks. And yes, this commander has a bit of a restriction, but this commander, I swear, this commander can be bonkers good. So if you're not too familiar with Yenna, which only 311 people seem to be pretty familiar with her, for 4 mana, 4/4, yep, whatever. Sure, that's fine. I don't think that matters at all. Literally, power doesn't matter here at all. If we had more toughness, that'd be nice. And if we had no power, basically, that would be fine too. Or even just 1, that would be fine. We're not trying to do anything like Voltron, though we could go down that rail. But anyway, for 2 mana, we tap our commander. We can copy an enchantment, or make a token copy of an enchantment. As long as we don't control a token copy of an enchantment or of the same name already. But if it's an aura, we can untap Yenna, scry 2, and we can only do that as a sorcery. So there is a few restrictions there. Well, restrictions. I say that, like, we want some auras, but I don't think we would want a lot of auras, because, like, I was thinking, like, you copy Parallel Lives or you copy Anointed Procession, and then you just start going to town and copying a whole bunch of your enchantments and doing all kinds of fun things. You can even slot in Doubling Season, though I don't know what counters you're doubling, and that's why I often don't include Doubling Season in a lot of decks, because it's like, well, you're either doing tokens or you're doing counters. Like, a couple of my decks are actually doing both, but either you're doing one or the other, and you don't really need both. So you need a direction for the most part. You don't need, like, just this thing that does another thing that you're not really doing already. Yes, the doubling is nice, but you could get other things to double your stuff. But anyway, I still think this is a very underrated commander, and I want to build a deck around it. This seems like the janky kind of fun that I kind of like. Just hoping and to see you do some silliness by copying your Parallel Lives or whatever, and then copying some other enchantment and having 3 or 4 different copies of that enchantment enter. It just sounds like living the dream. So I'm going to throw together a deck for myself, as well as you guys. So we'll get along and show you what I did. And since I can see from my analytics that most people don't really watch these videos any more than about 3 minutes in, I know most of you don't really care about, like, the actual content of a lot of these videos. So if you don't really care, if you're most of the people that watch these videos, you can go on, check the deck list out in the comments down below. It's there for you to use and get all the information that you want to get for this deck list. But for those people, those very few people who do stick with the video for more than 3 minutes, I will try to get through it as quickly as possible. Alright, so I don't want to go through too much of the list, because there's a lot of obvious things and traditional type things that you would expect in this deck. So I want to go over the more obscure stroke new things that are kind of in this deck. There are a few instant auras that we're kind of putting in this deck. Like the impetuses and the vowels and that sort of thing. Goading our opponents and making them not being able to attack us is pretty nice. So that really helps us out. It is a form of removal, so that can be quite useful. There's also a couple other ones that are pretty useful. We've got a bit of protection, a lot of like common sort of stuff that you would expect. Blind Obedience, though, can be a bit of a win condition as well if we have enough mana, enough spells to kind of extort, which is kind of why extort's really good. And that sort of thing. A lot of traditional card draw stuff. I have actually a couple other card advantage cards as well sitting in the list, but they're not here in the actual card draws. The Tunglespin Lookout, new card that is going quite well in some of these enchantment style decks if you're doing stuff with auras. I am with this deck, so that's pretty darn decent for this listing here. A few ones that you might scratch your head at, but I assure you it all works. Obviously not going to go through the lands. You can find lands for yourself if you need them. I'm not going to go through too many of the other like win condition sort of cards and whatnot because it's a lot of the traditional sort of stuff in here. There's a lot of stuff that fits into the traditional enchantment package. There's a couple of new cards, as I sort of say, but there's a lot of sort of the Sigil of the Empty-Throat Hallowed Haunting stuff going on here. Flowering White Tree is pretty darn decent, and Cathar's Crusade and such, and the Bastion of or Boon of the Spirit Realms pretty darn decent as well. Got a bit of recursion, a bit more recursion with the Castle Ardenvale, the Court of Ardenvale. That's pretty darn decent. We also have some very good untapped stuff: Virtue of Loyalty, Nature's Chosen, Instill Energy. We want to untap our commander and use it multiple times, and we can copy these Instill Energy and Nature's Chosen as they are auras, and we will untap our commander, then can untap our commander and copy more things. So pretty darn useful. A lot of the ramp that I tried to put in this deck was also aura based, so that we could get as much triggers off of our commander. Not all of it is, but again, I tried to fit as much in as what I could. Now, some of these cards are obvious sort of cards for what we're kind of doing, copying things, Calyx. Honestly, I wanted to kind of do a Calyx deck at some point because Calyx is pretty cool, but just unfortunately I never did it. I don't really think that he's that amazing as the face of his own deck. Like, you can buff him up pretty well, but if you do hit people with things that are enchantments or enchanted, then you can start copying things with him. But that's the kind of the problem. He doesn't really have enough ways to get through. You really need to build around him. You really need to give him good evasion and whatnot to get him through, and I'm just not doing that here. Mondak's amazing, even though it's not an enchantment, and the new Ondu Spirit Dancer is pretty darn decent. In fact, I was playing with this the other day, and I realized that in response to its trigger going off when an enchantment comes into play, you can use your commander's ability, assuming it has the ability to tap, to copy the enchantment before this ability goes off so that you get even more copies of it and whatnot. Obviously with Parallel Lives and Anointed Procession as well, because they're just busted, especially when you copy them and things like that. They just really generate lots and lots of value for this list. There's lots of really cool cross-branching kind of synergies going on in this deck. This is the type of deck that I kind of like. I do think it needs a little bit of work. There's some cards that are in here, like some of the Wanderers and some of that sort of stuff, that they kind of do stuff sometimes, but they kind of also don't do a lot of stuff, and the deck needs more ways to kind of win, or it needs more enchantments or whatever, or just maybe more things to kind of get the deck running and going. There's some cards that are here, like Spark Rapture and like Phyrexian Unlife and a few others that perhaps, maybe even Dawn of Hope, that should maybe go in the card draw. I'm not too sure, but anyway, like, I'm not too sure that they actually really fit for what we're trying to really do, but there's not very many other, amazing things that I could really find just like off the bat. So I think this is a pretty decent list just to start with. Maybe I'll upgrade it a bit more as I'm going along. I decided to actually put in Swiftfoot Boots over something that wasn't too amazing already, because I just thought, I want haste. But I definitely don't want Greave. So I think I was thinking about the thing that the artifact that gives your creatures haste for abilities, basically, and you can tap it to untap creatures. That could be pretty decent. It is an artifact, but that is pretty decent, and over something that really doesn't do a whole lot for what we're trying to do, which is tap our commander multiple times to copy multiple things. We do get that scry, which is nice card advantage. So yeah, I do think that this is a pretty fun list, having played it a couple of times, and maybe like the mana base or whatever needs a little bit of tweaking, but no, it needs a bit of tweaking. We do need a few more white sources, I think. So yeah. But that is the list for now, and I did notice that white sources were a little bit lacking, but still, it's one of those things. But anyway, guys, you guys can let me know what you guys think of this base list for now. Write your thoughts down there in the comments below. Hope you've enjoyed. Hope you'll join me again in the next one.